Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am MK Jabintaj. Today in this video I am giving you the knowledge about the first module of the subject application development using Python for 5th sem CSE CBCS PTU students. I am dedicating this video to all the students all over the world. Now let us see module 1 Python basics. Entering expressions into the interactive shell. Run the interactive shell by launching IDLE, which is installed with Python. On Windows, open the Start menu, select All Programs Python 3.3 and then select IDLE Python GUI. On OS X, select Applications, then Mac Python 3.3, then IDLE. On Ubuntu, open a new terminal window and enter IDLE 3. A window with the prompt should appear, that's the interactive shell. See here, the IDLE window should now show some text like this. See here, type copyright credits or license for more information. In Python, 2 is called an expression, which is the most basic kind of programming instruction in the language. Expressions consist of values such as 2 and operators such as plus, and they can always evaluate, that is reduced down to a single value. That means you can use expressions anywhere in the Python code, that you could also use a value. In the previous example, 2 plus 2 is evaluated down to a single value. For a single value with no operators is also considered as an expression, though it evaluates only to itself as shown here. The other operators which can be used are, see here table. The order of operations, also called precedence of Python math operators, is similar to that of the mathematics. The double star operator is evaluated first, and the star, slash, double slash and percentage operators are evaluated next from left to right, and the plus and minus operators are evaluated last, also from left to right. We can use parentheses to override the usual precedence if you need to. See here, due to wrong instructions, errors occurs as shown below. The integer, floating point and string data types. The expressions are just values combined with operators, and they always evaluate down to a single value. A data type is a category for values, and every value belongs to exactly one data type. See the table here. The integer or int data type indicates values that are whole numbers. Numbers with a decimal point such as 3.14 are called floating point numbers or floats. Note that even though the value 42 is an integer, the value 42.0 would be a floating point number. Python programs can also have text values called strings or strs and surrounded in a single quote. The string with no characters called double comma called a blank string. If the error message syntax error EOL while scanning string literal, then probably the final single quote character at the end of the string is missing. See here, string concatenation and replication. The meaning of an operator may change based on the data type of the values next to it. For example, plus is the addition operator when it operates on two integers or floating point values. However, then plus is used on two string values. It joins the string as the string concatenation operator. See the figure here. If it try to use the plus operator on a string and an integer value, Python will not know how to handle this, and it will display an error message. See below here. The star operator is used for multiplication when it operates on two integer or floating point values, but when the star operator is used on one string value and one integer value, it becomes the string replication operator. The star operator can be used with only two numeric values for multiplication or one string value and one integer value for string replication. Otherwise, Python will just display an error message. Storing values in variables. A variable is like a box in the computer's memory where you can store a single value. If we need to use variables later, then the result must be stored in a variable. Assignment statements. You will store values in variables with an assignment statement. An assignment statement consists of a variable name and equal sign called the assignment operator and the value to be stored. Example, spam is equal to 42. See the figure here. Overwriting the variable. A variable is initialized or created the first time a value is stored in it. After that, you can use it in expressions with other variables and values. When a variable is assigned a new value, the old value is forgotten, which is why spam evaluated to 42 instead of 40 at the end of the example. See here. One more example is as shown below. Now let us see variable names. We can name a variable anything as long as it obeys the following three rules. It can be only one word. It can use only letters, numbers and underscore characters. It cannot begin with a number. See the table here. Variable names are case sensitive, meaning that spam and spam are four different variables. First spam is small letters, then in capital letters, then mixture of capitals and small letters are four different variables. This book uses camel case for variable names instead of underscores. That is, variables look like this instead of looking like this. Looking underscore like underscore this. A good variable name describes the data it contains. Your first program. The file editor is similar to the text editors such as Notepad or TextMate, but it has some specific features for typing in source code. The interactive shell window will always be the one with the triple times greater than prompt. The file editor windows will not have the triple greater than symbol prompt. The extension for Python program is .py. See the example here. The output is as shown below. Now let us see dissecting your program. Comments. The following line is called a comment. Python ignores comments and we can use them to write notes or remind ourselves what the code is trying to do. Any text for the rest of the line following a hash mark is part of a comment. Sometimes programmers will put a hash in front of a line of code to temporarily remove it while testing a program. This is called commenting out code and it can be useful when you are trying to figure out why a program does not work. Python also ignores the blank line after the comment. The printf function. The print function displays the string value inside the parentheses on the screen. See below here. The line print hello world means print out the text in the string hello world. When Python executes this line, you say that Python is calling the printf function and the string value is being passed to the function. A value that is passed to a function call is an argument. The quotes are not printed to the screen. They just mark where the string begins and ends. They are not part of the string value. Note, we can also use this function to put a blank line on the screen. Just call print with nothing in between the parentheses. The input function. The input function waits for the user to type some text on the keyboard and press enter. This function call evaluates to a string equal to the user's text. The previous line of the code assigns the my name variable to this string value. We can think of the input function call as an expression that evaluates to whatever string the user typed in. If the user entered A1, then the expression would evaluate to my name is equal to A1. Printing the user's name. The following call to print actually contains the expression it is good to meet you plus my name between the parentheses. Remember that expressions can always evaluate to a single value. If A1 is the value stored in my name on the previous line, then this expression evaluates to it is good to meet you A1. This single string value is then passed to the print, which prints it on the screen. The len function. We can pass the len function a string value or a variable containing a string, and the function evaluates to the integer value of the number of characters in that string. See the example here. In the interactive shell, see below, len my name evaluates to an integer. It is then passed to print to be displayed on the screen. Possible errors. The print function is not causing the error, but rather it's the expression you tried to pass to print. Python gives an error because we can use the plus operator only to add two integers together or concatenate two strings. We can't add an integer to a string because this is ungrammatical in Python. See the figure here. The str, int and float functions. If we want to concatenate an integer such as 29 with a string to pass to print, we will need to get the value 29, which is the string form of 29. The str function can be passed an integer value and will evaluate to a string value version of it as follows. Because str of 29 evaluates to 29, the expression I am plus str of 29 plus years old evaluates to I am plus 29 plus years old, which is in turn evaluates to I am 20 years old. This is the value that is passed to the print function. The str, int and float functions will evaluate to the string, integer and floating point forms of the value you pass respectively, converting some values in the interactive shell with these functions. See here. The previous example, call the str, int and float functions and pass them values of the other data types to obtain a string, integer or floating point form of those values. The str function is handy when you have an integer or float that you want to concatenate to a string. The init function is also helpful if we have a number as a string value that you want to use in some mathematics. For example, the input function always returns a string even if the user enters a number. Enter spam is equal to input into the interactive shell and enter 101 when it waits for your text. The value stored inside spam is not the integer 101 but the string 101. If we want to do math using the value in spam, use the int function to get the integer form of spam and then store this as the new value in the spam. Now we should be able to treat the spam variable as an integer instead of a string. Note that if we pass a value of int that is cannot evaluate as an integer, Python will display an error message. See here, the int function is also useful if we need to round a floating point number down. If we want to round a floating point number up, just add 1 to it afterwards. In your program, we used the int str functions in the last 3 lines to get a value of the appropriate data type for the code. The myAge variable contains the value returned from input because the input function always returns a string even if the user typed in a number. We can use the int myAge code to return an integer value of the string in myAge. This integer value is then added to 1 in the expression int of myAge plus 1. The result of this addition is passed to the str function str int of myAge plus 1. The str value returned is then concatenated with the strings you will be and in a year to evaluate to one large string value. This large string is finally passed to the print to be displayed on the screen. Another input. Let's say the user enters the string 4 for myAge. The string 4 is converted to an integer, so you can add 1 to it. The result is 5. The str function converts the result back to a string, so we can concatenate it with the second string in a year to create the final message. These evaluation steps would look something like below. See here. Text and number equivalence. Although the string value of a number is considered a completely different value from the integer or floating point version, an integer can be equal to a floating point. See here. Now let us see control flow. Boolean values, comparison operators, Boolean operators, mixing Boolean and comparison operators, elements of flow control, program execution, flow control statement, importing modules, and ending a program early with sys.exit. Now let us see introduction. Flow control statements can decide with which Python instructions to execute under which conditions. These flow control statements directly correspond to the symbols in a flow chart. In a flow chart, there is usually more than one way to go from the start to end. Flow charts represents these branching waypoints with diamonds, while the other steps are represented with rectangles. The starting and ending steps are represented with rounded rectangles. See here. Boolean values. The Boolean data types. The Boolean data type has only two values, true and false. When typed as Python code, the Boolean values true and false lack the quotes you place around strings, and they always start with a capital T or F with the rest of the word in lowercase. See the example here. Like any other value, Boolean values are used in expressions and can be stored in variables. If we don't use the proper case or we try to use true and false for variable names, Python will give you an error message. Comparison operators. Comparison operators compare two values and evaluate down to a single Boolean value. Table 2 lists the comparison operators. See here. These operators evaluate to true or false depending on the values we give them. The double is equal to and not equal to operators can actually work with values of any data type. See here. Note that an integer or floating point value will always be unequal to a string value. The expression 42 is equal to 42 within the single quotes evaluates to false because Python considers the integer 42 to be different from the string 42 within the single quotes. The greater than, lesser than, greater than or equal to, lesser than or equal to operators on the other hand work properly only with integers and floating point values. The difference between the double is equal to and is equal to operators. The double is equal to operator equal to asks whether two values are the same as each other. The is equal to operator, assignment operator, puts the value on the right into the variable on the left. We often use comparison operators to compare a variable's value to some other value, like in the egg count lesser than are equal to 42 and myAge greater than or equal to 10. Examples. Boolean operators. The three Boolean operators and, are, and not are used to compare Boolean values. Binary Boolean operators. The and or operators always take two Boolean values or expressions, so they are considered binary operators. And operator. The and operator evaluates an expression to true if both Boolean values are true, otherwise it evaluates to false. See the tables here. OR operator. The OR operator evaluates an expression to true if either of the two Boolean values is true. If both are false, it evaluates to false. See the table here. Not operator. The not operator operates only the not operator operates on only one Boolean value or expression. The not operator simply evaluates to the opposite Boolean value, much like using double negatives in speech and writing. You can nest not operators, though there's never no reason to do this in real programs. See the table here. Now let us see mixing Boolean and comparison operators. Since the comparison operators evaluate two Boolean values, we can use them in expressions with the Boolean operators. See the example here. The computer will evaluate the left expression first and then it will evaluate the right expression. When it knows the Boolean value for each, it will then evaluate the whole expression down to one Boolean value. You can think of the computer's evaluation process for 4 is lesser than 5 and 5 is lesser than 6 as shown in the figure below. See the figure here. We can also use multiple Boolean operators in an expression along with the comparison operators. The Boolean operators have an order of operations just like the math operator do after any math, and comparison operators evaluate. Python evaluates the not operators first, then the and operators, and then the or operators. Now let us see elements of flow control. Flow control statements often start with a part called the condition and all are followed by a block of code called the class conditions. The Boolean expressions you have seen so far could all be considered conditions, which are the same thing as expressions. Condition is just a more specific name in the context of flow control statements. Conditions always evaluate down to a Boolean value, true or false. A flow control statement decides what to do based on whether its condition is true or false, and almost every flow control statement uses a condition. Block of code. Lines of Python code can be grouped together in blocks. There are 3 rules for blocks. Block begin when the indentation increases. Blocks can contain other blocks can contain other blocks. Blocks end when the indentation decreases to 0 or to a containing blocks indentation. See the figure here. The first block of code starts at the line print hello Mary and contains all the lines after it. Inside this block is another block which has only a single line in it, print access granted. The third block is also one line long, print wrong password. Program execution. The program execution or simply execution is a term for the current instruction being executed. Flow control statements. If statements. The most common type of flow control statement is the if statement and if statements class, that is the block following the if statement will execute if the statement's condition is true. The class is script if the condition is false. In plain English, an if statement can be read as if this condition is true, execute the code in the class. In Python, an if statement consists of the following: the if keyword, a condition that is an expression that evaluates to true or false, a colon, and starting on the next line an intended block of the code called the if class. See the example here and flowchart. Now let us see else statement. An if clause can optionally be followed by an else statement. The else clause is executed only when the if statement's condition is false. In plain English, an else statement could be read as if this condition is true, execute this code, or else execute that code. An else statement doesn't have a condition, and in code an else statement always consists of the following: the else keyword, a colon starting on the next line, and intended block of code called the else clause. See the example here and the flowchart. If statement. While only one of the if or else clause will execute, we may have a case where we want one of many possible clause to execute. The if statement is an else if statement that always follows an if or another if statement. It provides another condition that is checked only if all of the previous conditions were false. In code, an elif statement always consists of the following: the elif keyword, a condition that is an expression that evaluates to true or false, a colon starting on the next line, an intended block of the code called the elif clause. See the example. See the flowchart here. When there is a chain of elif statements, only one or none of the class will be executed. See example and flowchart. The order of the elif statements does matter. However, let's see by rearranging the previous code. Say the age variable contains the value 3000. Before this code is executed, we might expect the code to print the string: unlike you, Alice is not an undead immortal vampire. However, because age is greater than 100 condition is true, after all 3000 is greater than 100, the string "you are not Alice, Granny" is printed, and the rest of the elif statements are automatically skipped. Remember, at most only one of the classes will be executed, and for elif statements the order matters. Flowchart 1. Optionally, we can have an else statement after the last elif statement. In that case, it is guaranteed that at least one and only one of the class will be executed. If the condition in every if and elif statement are false, then the else class is executed. In plain English, this type of flow control structure would be: if the first condition is true, do this, else if the second condition is true, do that, otherwise do something else. See the example here and flowcharts. While loop statements. We can make a block of code execute over and over again with a while statement. The code in the while class will be executed as long as the while statement's condition is true. In code, a while statement always consists of the following: the while keyword, a condition that is an expression that evaluates to true or false, a colon starting on the next line, an intended block of code called the while class. We can see that a while statement looks similar to an if statement. The difference is in how they behave. At the end of an if class, the program execution continues after the if statement, but at the end of the while class, the program execution jumps back to the start of the while statement. The while class is often called the while loop or just the loop. See the example here. These statements are similar. Both if and while check the value of spam, and if it's less than 5, they print a message. But when we run these two code snippets for the if statement, the output is simply hello world, but for the while statement, it's hello world repeated 5 times. See the flowcharts here. In the while loop, the condition is always checked at the start of each iteration, that is, each time the loop is executed. If the condition is true, then the class is executed and afterwards the condition is checked again. The first time the condition is found to be false, the while class is skipped. An annoying while loop. Here a small example program that will keep asking to type literally your name. First, the program sets the name variable to an empty string. This is so that the name is not equal to your name. Condition will evaluate to true and the program execution will enter the while loops class. The code inside this class asks the user to type their name, which is assigned to the name variable. Since this is the last line of the block, the execution moves back to the start of the while loop and re-evaluates the condition. If the value is in name is not equal to the string your name, then the condition is true and the execution enters the while class again. But once the user types your name, the condition of the while loop will be your name not equal to your name, which evaluates to false. The condition is now false and instead of program execution re-entering the while loops class, it skips past it and continues running the rest of the program. See the flowchart here. Now let us see break statements. There is a shortcut to getting the program execution to break out of while loops class early. If the execution reaches a break statement, it immediately exits the while loops class. In code, a break statement simply contains the break keyword. See the example here. The first line creates an infinite loop. It is a while loop whose condition is always true. The expression true after all always evaluates down to the value true. The program execution will always enter the loop and will exit it only when a break statement is executed. An infinite loop that never exits is a common programming bug. Just like before, the program asks the user to type your name. Now, however, while the execution is still inside the while loop, an if statement gets executed to check whether name is equal to your name. If the condition is true, the break statement is run and the execution moves out of the loop to print thank you. Otherwise, if the if statements class with the break statement is a script which puts the execution at the end of the while loop. At this point, the program execution jumps back to the start of the while statement to recheck the condition. Since this condition is merely the true boolean value, the execution enters the loop to ask the user to type your name again. See the flowchart here. Now let us see continue statements. Like break statements, continue statements are used inside loops. When the program execution reaches a continue statement, the program execution immediately jumps back to the start of the loop and re-evaluates the loop's condition. See the example and output. If the user enters any name besides Joe, the continue statement causes the program execution to jump back to the start of the loop. When it re-evaluates the condition, the execution will always enter the loop since the condition is simply the value true. Once they make it past that if statement, the user is asked for a password. If the password entered is swordfish, then the break statement is run and the execution jumps out of the while loop to print access granted. Otherwise, the execution continues to the end of the while loop where it then jumps back to the start of the loop. See the flowchart here. There are some values in other data types that conditions will consider equivalent to true and false when used in conditions 0, 0.0 and empty string are considered false while all other values are considered true. See the example here. Note, if we ever run a program that has a bug causing it to get stuck in an infinite loop, press Ctrl C. This will send a keyboard interrupt error to your program and cause it to stop immediately. Now let us see for loops and the range function. If we want to execute a block of code only a certain number of times, then we can do this with a for loop statement and the range function. In the code, a for statement looks something like for I in range 5 and always includes the following: the for keyword, a variable name, the in keyword, a call to the range method with up to 3 integers passed to it, a colon starting on the next line, and intended block of code called the for class. See the example and output here. The code in the for loops class is run 5 times. The first time it is run, the variable I is set to 0. The print call in the class will print Jimmy 5 times. After Python finishes an iteration through all the code inside the for loops class, the execution goes back to the top of the loop and the for statement increments I by 1. This is why range of 5 results in 5 iterations through the class, with I being set to 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. The variable I will go up to but will not include the integer passed to range. Flow chart. See here flow chart and example 2. The result should be 5050 when the program first starts. The total variable is set to the 0. The for loop then executes total is equal to total plus num 100 times. By the time the loop has finished all of its 100 iterations, every integer from 0 to 100 will have been added to total. At this point, total is printed to the screen. An equivalent while loop. For the first example of for loop, see here the starting, stopping and stepping arguments to range. Some functions can be called with multiple arguments separated by a comma, and a range is one of them. This lets us change the integer passed to range to follow any sequence of integers, including starting at a number other than 0. The first argument will be where the for loops variable starts, and the second argument will be up to but not including the number to stop at. See here. The range function can also be called with the 3 arguments. The first 2 arguments will be the start and the stop values, and the third will be the step argument. The step is the amount that the variable is increased by after each iteration. So calling range 0, 10, 2 will count from 0 to 8 by intervals of 2. The range function is flexible in the sequence of numbers it produces. For loops, we can even use a negative number for the step argument to make the for loop count down instead of up. Running a for loop to print I with range 5, -1, should print from 5 down to 0. See here. Now let us see importing modules. All Python programs can call a basic set of functions called built-in functions, including the print, input and len functions. Python also comes with a set of modules called the standard library. Each module is a Python program that contains a related group of functions that can be embedded in your programs. For example, the math module has mathematics related functions, the random module has random number related functions, and so on. Before we can use the functions in a module, we must import the module with an import statement in code. An import statement consists of the following: the import keyword, the name of the module, optionally more module names as long as they are separated by commas. Once we import a module, we can use all the functions of that module. Example with the output is here. The random rand int function call evaluates to a random integer value between the two integers that you pass it. Since rand int is in the random module, we must first type random in front of the function name to tell Python to look for this function inside the random module. Here is an example of an import statement that imports 4 different modules. Now we can use any of these any of the functions in these 4 modules from import statements. An alternative form of the import statement is composed of the from keyword followed by the module name, the import keyword and a star. For example, from random import star. With this form of the import statement, calls to function in random will not need the random prefix. However, using the full name makes for more readable code, so it is better to use the normal form of the import statement. Now let us see ending a program early with sys.exit. The last flow control concept is how to terminate the program. This always happens if the program execution reaches the bottom of the instructions. However, we can cause the program to terminate or exit by calling the sys.exit function. Since this function is in the sys module, we have to import sys before your program can use it. See here. This program has an infinite loop with no break statement inside. The only way this program will end is if the user enters exit, causing sys.exit to be called. When response is equal to exit, the program ends. Since the response variable is set by the input function, the user must enter exit in order to stop the program. Now let us see functions. Def statement with parameters, return values and return statements, the non-value keyword arguments and print. Local and global scope, the global statement, exception handling, a short program, guess the number. Now let us see introduction. A function is like a mini program within a program. See the example here. The first line is a def statement which defines a function named hello. The code in the block that follows the def statement is the body of the function. This code is executed when the function is called, not when the function is first defined. The hello lines after the function are function calls. In code, a function call is just the function's name followed by parentheses, possibly with some number of arguments in between the parentheses. When the program execution reaches these calls, it will jump to the top line in the function and begin executing the code there. When it reaches the end of the function, the execution returns to the line that called the function and continues moving through the code as before. Since this program calls hello 3 times, the code in the hello function is executed 3 times. When we run this program, the output will look like this follows. A major purpose of functions is to group code that gets executed multiple times without a function defined. We would have to copy and paste this code each time and the program would look like this. See here. Now let us see del statements with parameters. When we call the print or len function, we pass in values called arguments in this context by typing them between the parentheses. We can also define our own functions that accept arguments. Example with output is as follows. The definition of the hello function in this program has a parameter called name. A parameter is a variable that an argument is stored in when a function is called. The first time the hello function is called, it's with the argument Alice. The program execution enters the function and the variable name is automatically set to Alice, which is what gets printed by the print statement. One special thing to note about parameter is that the value stored in a parameter is forgotten when the function returns. Now let us say return values and return statements. The values that function call evaluates to is called the return value of the function. Example, len of hello returns value is 5. When creating a function using the def statement, we can specify what the return value should be with a return statement. A return statement consists of the following: the return keyword, the value or expression that the function should return. When an expression is used with a return statement, the return value is what this expression evaluates to. For example, the following program defines a function that returns a different string depending on what number it is passed as an argument. When this program starts, Python first imports the random module, then the get answer function is defined. Because the function is being defined and not called, the execution skips over the code in it. Next, the randint function is called with two arguments 1 and 9. It evaluates to a random integer between 1 and 9, including 1 and 9 themselves, and this value is stored in a variable named r. The get answer function is called with r as the argument. The program execution moves to the top of the get answer function and the value r is stored in a parameter named answer number. Then depending on this value in answer number, the function returns one of many possible string values. The program execution returns to the line at the bottom of the program that originally called get answer. The returned string is assigned to a variable named fortune, which then gets passed to a print call and is printed to the screen. Note that since we can pass return values as an argument to another function call, we could shorten these 3 lines into a single line as follows. Now let us see the non-value. In Python, there is a value called none, which represents the absence of a value. None is the only value of the none type data type. This value without a value can be helpful when we need to store something that won't be confused for a real value in a variable. One place where none is used is as the return value of a print. The print function displays text on the screen, but it doesn't need to return anything in the same way len or input does. But since all the function calls needs to evaluate to a return value, print returns none. Behind the scenes, Python adds return none to the end of any function definition with no return statement. Now let us see keyword arguments and print. Most arguments are identified by their position in the function call. For example, randint 1, 10 is different from random.randint 10, 1. The function call randint 1, 10 will return a random integer between 1 to 10 because the first argument is the low end of the range and the second argument is the high end, while random.randint 10, 1 causes an error. However, keyword arguments are identified by the keyword put before them in the function call. Keyword arguments are often used for optional parameters. For example, the print function has the optional parameters end and sep to specify what should be printed at the end of its arguments and between its arguments, separating them respectively. The two strings appear on separate lines because the print function automatically adds a new line character to the end of the string it is passed. However, we can set the end keyword argument to change this to a different string. For example, if the program were this, see here, The output is printed on the single line because there is no longer a new line printed after hello. Instead, the blank string is printed. This is useful if we need to disable the new line that gets added to the end of the every print function call. Similarly, when we pass multiple string values to print, the function will automatically separate them with a single space. But we could replace the default separating string by passing the sep keyword argument. See here. Now let us see local and global scope. Parameters and variables that are assigned in a called function are said to exist in that function's local scope. Variables that are assigned outside all functions are said to exist in the global scope. A variable that exists in a local scope is called local variable, while a variable that exists in the global scope is called a global variable. A variable must be one or the other. It cannot be both local and global. When a scope is destroyed, all the values stored in the scope's variables are forgotten. There is only one global scope and it is created when your program begins. When your program terminates, the global scope is destroyed and all its variables are forgotten. A local scope is created whenever a function is called. Any variable assigned in this function exists within the local scope. When the function returns, the local scope is destroyed and these variables are forgotten. Scope matter for several reasons. Code in the global scope cannot use any local variables. However, a local scope can access global variables. Code in a function's local scope cannot use variables in any other local scope. We can use the same name for different variables if they are in different scopes. That is, there can be a local variable named spam and a global variable also named spam. Local variables cannot be used in the global scope. Consider this example which will cause an error when you run it. See the program and output. The error happens because the x variable exists only in the local scope created when spam is called. Once the program execution returns from spam, that local scope is destroyed and there is no longer a variable named x. Local scopes cannot use variables in other local scopes. A new local scope is created whenever a function is called, including when a function is called from another function. Consider this example. When the program starts, the spam function is called and the local scope is created. The local variable x is set to 99. Then the backon function is called and a second local scope is created. Multiple local scopes can exist at the same time. In this new local scope, the local variable ham is set to 101 and a local variable x, which is different from the one in spam's local scope, is also created and set to 0. When backon returns, the local scope for that call is destroyed. The program execution continues in the spam function to print the value of x, and since the local scope for the call to spam still exists here, the x variable is set to 99. Now let us see global variables can be read from a local scope. Consider the following program. Since there is no parameter named x or any code that assigns x a new in the spam function, when x is used in spam, Python considers it a reference to the global variable x. This is why 42 is printed when the previous program is run. Now let us see local and global variables with the same name. To simplify, avoid using local variables that have the same name as a global variable or another local variable, but technically it's perfectly legal to do so. See the example and output here. There are actually three different variables in this program, but confusingly they are all named x. The variables are as follows. A variable named x that exists in a local scope when spam is called. A variable named x that exists in a local scope when beacon is called. A variable named x that exists in the global scope. Since these three separate variables all have the same name, it can be confusing to keep track of which one is being used at any given time. This is why we should avoid using the same variable name in different scopes. Now let us see the global statement. If we need to modify a global variable from within a function, use the global statement. If we have a line such as global x at the top of the function, it tells Python in this function x refers to the global variable, so don't create a local variable with this name. See the example and output. Because x is declared global at the top of the spam, when x is set to spam, this assignment is done to the globally scoped x. No local x variable is created. There are 4 rules to tell whether a variable is in a local scope or global scope. If a variable is being used in the global scope, that's outside of all the functions, then it is always a global variable. If there is a global statement for that variable in a function, it is a global variable. Otherwise, if the variable is used in an assignment statement in the function, it is a local variable. But if the variable is not used in an assignment statement, it is a global variable. See the example and output. In the spam function, x is the global x variable because there is a global statement for x at the beginning of the function. In backend, x is a local variable because there is an assignment statement for it in that function. In ham, x is the global variable because there is no assignment statement or global statement for it in that function. In a function, a variable will either always be global or always be local. There is no way that the code in a function can use a local variable named x and then later in that same function use the global x variable. Now, if we ever want to modify the value stored in a global variable from in a function, we must use a global statement on that variable. If we try to use a local variable in a function before we assign a value to it, as in the following program, Python will give you an error. This error happens because Python sees that there is an assignment statement for x in the spam function and therefore considers x to be local. But because print x is executed before x is assigned anything, the local variable x doesn't exist. Python will not fall back to using the global x variable. Now let us see exception handling. If we don't want to crash the program due to errors, instead we want the program to detect errors, handle them and then continues to run. For example, see the program and output here. A zero division error happens whenever we try to divide a number by 0. From the line number given in the error message, we know that the return statement in spam is causing an error. Errors can be handled with try and except statements. The code that could potentially have an error is put in a try class. The program execution moves to the start of a following except class. If an error happens, we can put the previous divide by 0 code in a try class and have an except class contain code to handle what happens when this error occurs. See the program and output. Note that any errors that occur in the function calls in a try block will also be caught. Consider the following program which instead has the spam calls in the try block. The reason print spam of 1 is never executed is because once the execution jumps to the code in the accept class, it does not return to the try class. Instead, it just continues moving down as normal. Let us see a short program, guess the number. This is a simple guess the number game. When we run this program, the output will look something like this. See here. The code for the program is as follows. Let's look at this code line by line, starting at the top. First, a comment at the top of the code explains what the program does. Then the program imports the random model so that it can use the random.randint function to generate a number for the user to guess. The return value, a random integer between 1 and 20, is stored in the variable secret number. The program tells the player that it has come with a secret number and will give the player 6 chances to guess it. The code that lets the player enter a guess and checks that guess in a for loop that will loop at most 6 times. The first thing that happens in the loop is that player types in a guess. Since input returns a string, it returns value in passed straight into int, which translates the string into an integer. The get stored in a variable named guess. See the code here. These few lines of code checks to see whether the guess is less than or greater than the secret number. In either case, a hint is printed to the screen. See here. If the guess is neither higher nor lower than the secret number, then it must be equal to the secret number, in which case you want the program execution to break out of the for loop. See here. After the for loop, the previous if-else statement checks whether the player has correctly guessed the number and prints an appropriate message to the screen. In both cases, the program displays a variable that contains an integer value, guesses taken, and secret number. Since it must concatenate these integer values to strings, it passes these variable to the str function, which returns the string value from which returns the string value form of these integers. Now these strings can be concatenated with the plus operator before finally being passed to the print function call.